All right, good morning, Star Wars fans. Chris Gogolin here, about to bring you live coverage of the finals of the 2021 Retro event. It was the Premiere to Death Star 2 format. We've got two of the best players to ever play the game competing in this final, which should take place in just a few minutes here. Zlorfik, aka Bastion Winkelhaus, the 2001, 2018, and 2019 world champion. Yeah, three-time world champion, uh, PC Hall of Famer, Decipher Hall of Famer. He's one of the few players inducted into Decipher's Hall of Fame in 2002. Uh, been an amazing player throughout his entire career, even with a hiatus in the from like 2006 to like 2015. Came back to the game and has been killing it, winning two world championships in the last couple years. And he'll be taking on Hayes Hunter, another top 10 ranked player in the Decipher era. I think Hayes at one point was ranked as high as number 3 in the world. Um, you know, uh, won a number of regionals, competed in the world championships. I think he was a day 3 finalist at least 1 or 2 years, making the top 12 and competing in day 3 in Decipher era tournaments. As well as top finishes at like Gen Con and Origins and a lot of the other conventions that they ran. Maybe even won Dragon Con one year, I feel like. But we didn't really keep a lot of statistics of those winners, so they're not just lying around that I can just pull them up real quick. But like I said, two amazing players who are should put on a pretty interesting and exciting matchup. They should be getting underway here in just a few minutes. They're both in the lobby, getting ready to play. And hopefully we'll be seeing them get their game started up in just a couple minutes here. They're scheduled for an 11 a.m. Eastern time start time, so scheduled to start in about 10 minutes. But I want to make sure we got the stream up and running, so we're ready to go. So they're not, waiting on us. It's when players are always trying to get something in and get it going. You don't certainly want them waiting around on the technical side of things. So I believe the matchups today, I think Bastion played Prophet and Set Your Course Brangus were his two decks. And Hayes has Throne Room and Rops, I think, are what we've got. So we've got Throne Room versus Set Your Course. We saw a similar matchup between Bastion and Justin in the final four, but I'm sure Hayes' version will be a little bit different than what Justin played. And then the other side, it'll be Rob's versus Prophet, I think, is what Bastion. I think those were the decks that he used for the top 8. Um, so yeah, should be some interesting matchups. Obviously, throughout the game, we'll talk about all the things, some of the things that are different between the current environment and the retro format here. No defensive shields, a lot of those key effects and things like that, like secret plans and battle order and Chimera Big Coward, that people just kind of default to as defensive shields. Those are cards you'd have to include in your deck, cards you'd have to find. Very rarely are any of them ever worth a starting slot. So those are things you're paying effect pullers to dig out, or just hoping to draw into by some point in the middle of the game to slow down your opponent, stop their retrieval, limit their force strains, that kind of stuff. So certainly a very different pacing and dynamic in the retro format, the Premier Death Star 2 formats. Um, it feels like it has a little bit more of a setup time, whereas some open decks, because you're starting 3 effects on the table, you've got the defensive shields to slow down the retrieval and the force draining and things like that. So a lot of players go for the big activation with playing multiple cards to pull multiple locations for activation packages, and then trying to either set up a big drain somewhere or get a foothold and try and do some early battle damage. Whereas these Premier Death Star 2 games tend to take a little bit longer to set up and develop. Um, you're spending 2 to 3 turns kind of digging out some activation. Everything's not so automatic. You've got a lot of docking bays because that you can pull with the mob points or staging areas to get the extra activation boost that way. You pulled 1-0 docking bays, and you know there's not a lot of spies in this format either, so there's less of a risk of those guys getting punched in the face. Less of a risk. There's still some spies, but um, a lot of the auto include spies that we see in open format. Jin Urso's a virtual card. Corrin Horn came out in Reflections 2, so the big light side guys who draw by themselves, who are a threat, don't really exist. Same thing with Darkside. Darkside's got Mara Jade. She's certainly one who they have to watch out a little bit more for. So light side has a little bit more trouble setting up on like their 1-0 docking base, because Mara Jade plus a lightsaber that she can pull can certainly do some serious damage. Do we think we ever see an in-person retro event at some point? Yeah, we did one. It was about 10 years ago now. Actually, probably a little more than that. Back in maybe like 2009, we did a live retro event. Had like 50 players or something in it. I believe Hayes won that tournament, I think. Let me see if I can find the detail on that on the PC site. I want to say it was like him and Desai in the finals of that. And then, would we do one again? I don't see why we wouldn't do one if there was an interest and a demand for it. I think it was back in 2009. The 2009 Players Championship, is this what we called for? Yeah, let's see what we got. All right, so the top 12 going into day 3, it was Hayes and Justin were 1 and 2. Mike Gem was number 3. Steve Baroni was 6. Stephen Lewis was 7. Matt Sokol 8. Chris Twilliger 9. David Langton 10. Tom Kelly 11. So then they played. That was going into day 3. I think they played 4 games, similar to that. They played 4 games Swiss and then got to like a top 2 or something, I think, and did like a final confrontation. Let's see what we got. Justin versus Hayes in the finals. Yep. Okay. So there you go. So Hayes won the last time we did an event like this, a major event like this, back in 2009. Hayes did win that tournament, so here he is in the finals again. And also don't forget to tune in open format, the finals of the MPC Consolation Bracket event, taking place also later today. We've got Apollyon and Mike Turner. Jason Raindow versus Mike Turner in the finals. We've been able to stream a couple of those games. Not as many as I would have liked, but a lot of them were kind of scheduled fairly last minute. It was like, hey, we're playing tonight, or we're playing, and we weren't able, or the people didn't really even post sometimes when they were playing. So it was a little more challenging to get some of those games streamed, but we did manage to get a few of them done. And we've got the finals of that tournament also taking place today, 5 p.m., so 6 hours from now. Commentary provided by 2020 World Champion and 2021 MPC Champion. Same guy, Joe Olson. We'll be doing the commentary for that. So we're going retro event in the morning. We're going open format in the afternoon. And the other big thing going on, of course, is U.S. Nationals that we just unveiled the details for on Theater this week. That's coming up in July. That will be our first live in-person event in a year and a half. Um, Going back to Endor from January of 2020 was the last time we were able to play live and in person. And so getting that one again. Denver, July 16th through the 18th. Details are on the PC site, along with registration links and the booking link for the hotel, so you can get your discounted rate. You can pre-register through the PC store and sign up for either the weekend pass, which is $35, discounted by $10 from its normal price, or the main event only, which is $25, also discounted $10 from its regular price. Hoping to get a big turnout for this one. Obviously, a lot of buzz, a lot of interest, a lot of people looking forward to getting back to playing with the real physical cards in your hands, and counting power yourself and remembering all the little third functions of a lot of the game text of cards all by yourself, doing things all in the right order. Very different game from the Gem dynamic. And I'm sure there's going to be more than a few players making a lot of mental errors from being rusty, not having the paper cards in their hands. Should be interesting to hear some fun stories about all the little things that people did incorrectly because they were just not used to playing live cards again. Plus, it'll also be a good time. I know a lot of people are really just anxious to see everybody. We haven't seen these people live. Uh, you know, had a meal, had a beer, whatever, in like I said, almost 18 months. So, all right, Bastion saying in the chat he's ready when Hayes is. A couple of people throwing out their good lucks and well wishes. And as soon as we get a table up here, we will have our first matchup. See who's playing which side first. I forget who's the higher seed. So Hayes is putting up dark side first. All right, so I guess Hayes was the higher seed. So this should be his Rops against Bastion's Prophet. Let's fire it up. Yep, Rops and Prophet. All right. So, with Imperial Arrest Order being a starting effect from Rops, Neighboring's certainly going to be restricted if that's something that Bastion is relying on in his deck, possibly. Put some guys on Tatooine, free Han, and then move to Ralltiir. That would certainly be a little bit more limited in terms of how he can do that. He can only do it during the move phase. With the global -1 drain modifier, it would certainly limit the damage he can do at the sites. He'll have lightsaber bonuses possibly. Hayes may be playing Decree. I don't know exactly what a space package looks like, but that's always an option that he could play Decree to control 2 systems in a site and cancel the 4 strain bonuses. So then it would really just be the ping damage from Prophet in terms of what Bastion's damage output is, which would be significantly less than the damage that Hayes would probably be doing draining over here. So I think what we were going to have to see is Bastion's going to have to commit most of his forces to Ralltiir. You'll probably see, if he's playing Ben Kenobi, Ben can only go to Tatooine, right? So Ben goes and frees Han and kind of does his thing over here, while Luke and everybody else kind of invade Ralltiir, would be my guess in terms of what his strategy would be. And obviously, Hayes can take advantage of the fact Prophet doesn't really play space. So if he can, get a system out and kind of satisfy battle order, and we do see that Hayes did start Decree non-V. Okay, so there, good call. Also does limit 1 planet site and 2 systems. They don't even have to be uh, battleground systems. So Ralltiir would certainly count as one. If you mob points for Karita, or something like that, or Rendili for his second system, he can control those 2 systems and then just needs one of his sites. Interesting audible we see from Bastion. He's only starting 2 effects here. He just started Insurrection and Insight. He didn't start a third effect. Yeah, I think he's got other effects in the deck, but maybe he just realized that none of them are really going to be helpful in this matchup, so he might as well keep them in the reserve deck. And um, if he's playing like a Wise Advice or something like that, he's not expecting. Maybe if he's watched the other matchups, maybe he knows Hayes isn't playing Sense or Alter in his Ralltiir decks, because these are the same deck list the players have been using for all the top 8. So, um, you know, if Hayes isn't going to alter his stuff, then he doesn't need, or sense his interrupts, then he doesn't necessarily need Wise Advice. It would really just be, it's an extra card in his deck that can help his differential. It's an extra 4 you can draw for Battle Destiny, that kind of thing. So certainly, if you have a little opportunity to gain some extra information, things like that could make a little bit of a difference in a matchup. Obviously, he'll have to pay for his immediate effects, so any grabbers he's paying now won't be free. So there's a slight drawback to not starting something like that. Or, if he's got to do or do not or whatever instead of a Wise Advice, then obviously maybe he doesn't need that, and maybe he's playing his own senses that he might want to protect that a little more from. So. Chat says Hayes might play the 2 Twix Hoth sites and can satisfy Decree that way. Playing the Wampa Cave and the 5th marker. Always a possibility. Alright, so Hayes gets Karita with. Did he have it in hand or did he pull it? He pulled it with mob points. Okay. Deployed that. He's going to use the arrest order to get the docking bay. Plays a Stormtrooper Cadet from hand. Used the RAL Ops to get the Spaceport Prefect's office, so he's upping his activation to 10 right away. Did not start 2 aliens. Probably doesn't. He might have 2 aliens in the deck, but certainly no need to put characters in play that are very likely to get attacked early. So, and then Hayes will just draw a couple cards. So he's getting a little bit extra activation, and like we said, there aren't as many light side spies that people would play in this format. So it's a sort of a lower risk play. Putting just a lone Imperial there to get some activation boost from mob points. Up to 21 viewers. Thank you guys all for joining us on this lovely Sunday morning. And Bastion will get his own 1-0 docking bay out. Alright, we get a Master Luke for free with a lightsaber, so he's going down early. And he went with EPP Han as his frozen Han of choice. And he's got a projection of the Skywalker in his opening hand. He's not going to waste much time getting that out. With Grimtosh and Monarch being much more popular cards in this format, both players are very likely to stay at 12 or fewer cards in hand. And if Bastion's looking to draw most of his force pile, he's going to draw up to 12. He's going to draw them all. To get an extra card out of your hand that you're going to deploy at some point anyway. I mean, obviously you want to limit your opponent's drains on Ralltiir, and the Prefect office is the one that lets you gives the guys the power bonus. So maybe it's a site you engage at, maybe it's not. but might as well, limit their drain. That's eventually probably going to be a site that he's going to at least try and control the flip. So getting that out proactively frees up a card slot in his hand. And during Hayes' activate phase, Bastion chooses to free Han and flip his objective. So he's going to do that now and get that out of the way. Belugo, thank you for renewing your subscription for month number 20. Always appreciate the support. If you're new to the channel, be sure and hit that follow button. And if you do have an Amazon Prime account, don't forget you can link it up to your Twitch account very easily. And then you get one free channel subscription each month. Saves you $5 or whatever. Instead of so you can feel free to subscribe to our channel, help support the Players Committee. We do have a foil card incentive program for that. At every, I think it's like there's 6-month milestones: 6, 12, 18, 24. When you get to those milestones, there's a post in the forums. Email our marketing advocate, Jared Napolitano, with a little screenshot, and get yourself some foil slips for showing your support to the Players Committee. All right. So Hayes has the street in hand. He's going to use the objective and get out the Ralltiir Forest. See if his docking bay was in there as well. So the street is the site that annoys me the most. It lets everybody move around for free. But it's not just characters. It's just your movement is free. So we see it all times with, AT-ATs and stuff too. So, all right, we got an EPP Vader going to the audience chamber early here. Going to try and take on Luke and Han. Yeah, I mean, you can pay the $5 for the Twitch subscription, but if you have Amazon Prime and you're already taking getting the benefits of that, the streaming service, the free shipping, or whatever you got going on, then you might as well get the link it up to the Twitch, get the one free subscription, and show the PC a little support and get yourself some foil slips in the process. Previous foil slips we've given out include Ezra Bridger, the Grand Inquisitor, and the I Want That Map objective. Those were the 3, 6, and 12-month subscription bonuses. I forget what the ones are for the 18 and over. All right, so Captain Sarkley hitting the table. Sergeant Elsick hitting the table nice and cheap. That's going to flip the Ralltiir objective. Hayes now adding 3 to his total battle destiny. Only 4 cards in hand, so spreading himself pretty thin pretty early. Going to swing at Han. All right, so there's tactical support. So we've got quite a few troopers in here. Makes sense in this type of build. And Lieutenant Arnett. That's going to hit Han. Let's see if he has any. Nope. No type of, dark strike or whatever to get rid of him. Luke's going to swing. There's a Ben Kenobi. He would need a 6 here. Nope, there's a Lando, so a couple of 1s. Oh, actually, he only needs 5 because of insight. So he's going to try again to shoot with Han. Again, just looking for a 5. And there's a 5. That's going to hit Vader, make him forfeit 0. So insight doing its job, making Dark Jedi defense value -1 there. Thank you very much, James, for sharing that. Oh, Bastion draws a 0 for Battle Destiny. He drew the docking bay, which he did. I'm sorry, Hayes drew it, which he did not get out with arrest order, which he could have taken out, but I guess he wanted to limit the number of sites to try and keep from getting flipped back. And he ends up drawing the 0. Now, because he's flipped it, still will end up being a 3 for total Battle Destiny. But that did not go so well. And now Vader's going to die. Han's going to die. Did he have the first turn? He did have the opening hand Gick. You'd think it would be a very risky play, knowing it's very likely Vader's going to get hit before it's 0, and your opponent's drawing 2 Battle Destiny there, that you take some overflow. So the Gick certainly makes the most sense. A little unfortunate, of course, that he drew the 0, because Luke's only immune to less than 4. So it's probably the only 0 that is left in his entire deck. Was probably that site. Certainly a calculated decision not to pull it, because you didn't want to give your opponent another location that they could deploy to. That would make it easier for them to potentially flip you back. And Captain Sarkley's going to stick it out here by himself. 1/4 saved, 3 cards in hand. Is it a second Gick? Is it a barrier? Yeah, I mean, obviously Hayes is a little disappointed that he drew the site. I mean, he had like, what, a 1 in 20, I think he had like 25 cards in his reserve deck. So, adding 3, anything else he draws would give him a 4 for total Battle Destiny and would get rid of Luke. So, a little bit of an unlucky break, and Hayes has also depleted his hand now, down to just 3 cards in hand. He can go get any card if he stays flipped, which he's likely to. He can use 2 Force during his control phase to go get any 1 card out of his reserve deck. So he'll have some options next turn for sure. But the question remains is, how aggressive can he be? Does he then instead just solidify his foothold a little bit on Ralltiir? He's got the benefit of the deploy +2 from Imperials, or Rebels rather, from the objective. Each Rebel is deploy +2 at Ralltiir locations. So with only 10 Force, it would be pretty tough for Bastion to get out more than 1 character, unless he had some cheap aliens like Tuaska or Melas who draw by themselves. We saw Lando with Blaster Pistol was his Lando of choice. That would also be a Lando that deploys without that type of bonus or deploy cost modifier. Oh, and now we've got R2-D2 going to the docking bay when he's with the Scomp Link. So now we've got that's right, he's playing the how did we get into this mess to dump his hand back and, draw additional cards. R2 also has the benefit when he's with the Scomp Link. If opponent draws Destiny of 1 to 3, you get to activate 1. If he draws a 4 to 6, you get to draw the top card of your reserve deck instead if you want. No benefit if they draw a 0 or a 7. If your opponent draws a 0, it's probably benefiting you anyway. And when R2 was printed, there were no 7s yet. So, and there's that first how do we get into this mess? With only 3 cards in hand, highly unlikely Hayes has a grabber. Certainly can't afford it either. So Bastion's going to use a Force, put his hand in his used pile, draw the same number of cards from the top of his reserve deck. He gets an extra card if the droid that he targeted was C-3PO or R2-D2. So basically it replaces itself in that case then. So he had 10 cards in hand, and he'll get to draw 10 more. I guess or 11, I think. We're kind of paused here for a second, wondering if one of the 3 cards in Hayes' hand is a sense, and he's considering trying to sense it with Ozzel or Sarkly. Can't imagine he's got a grabber that only deploys for one, but maybe he's got tentacles. Okay. So nothing Hayes is doing here. So I guess Sebastian gets to pick the order in which he puts the cards back. Also, a big benefit to players who are very good at tracking cards in their deck. I mean, he's activating 11. He's got 27 cards in his reserve deck. So you're looking at 2 to 3 turns ahead. But if he can put some stuff back in a very specific order, and then keep track of it later, he can certainly set up some destinies, you know, put a low destiny somewhere to trigger a neighbor to get Luke off of here, and then have high destinies behind it to, you know, draw for battle destiny on the following turn. If there's any other interrupts you potentially may want to play, like an on the edge or anything like that. Now, of course, the flip side to that is then you're not using insurrection to cycle cards or search for anything else or verify anything else, because then you're just going to shuffle all that up and mess up all that tracking. Now he's got 27 in reserve deck. He's activating 11, but he's going to draw 10 or 11 cards off here too. So he could 17, 16. He activates 11. The cards he puts here would only be like 3 or 4 cards down then, or 4 or 5 cards down then. Possibly triggering anything else with R2 to activate or draw to get him even closer to that. And if he picks up any extra locations, any 2-0s, like maybe he's playing like Rendezvous Point or something like that, now he's in a much better position to activate 2 of those cards he put back. So the order in which he put them into his use pile is certainly a little bit more significant. Jemp only helps you scroll up to be good at tracking in terms of, if you drew a card for Destiny. If you're putting cards blindly from hand into your use pile or anything like that, you don't know what cards those were, because then it would reveal it to your opponent as well. So not quite accurate there, BBQ. And he picks up the Where You Looking for Me. So we can go dig out a 3PO. He gets original 3PO, and he gets C3PO. So original 3PO here does a little bit of something there. Gives you a nice little power bonus when you've got droids and rebels together. But C3PO here deploys only to Jabba's Palace site once per game when replacing Retrieve 3 Force. So you play the one, then you persona replace him with the other one, and you get to retrieve 3 cards. That would get you back your Han that died. When he's in battle with another droid and a rebel, he adds a battle destiny. And then R2 deploys and moves for free. And there's the persona replacement. So he retrieves the 3PO because the card goes lost first, the persona replacement. So that 3PO goes lost, and then he gets to retrieve 3 cards. So he retrieves the 3PO plus the Han that he lost. So he has the ability to potentially flip his objective again. Hanemeth adds 2 to deploy cost of each opponent's male Imperial when they're deploying to same or adjacent site. So it's going to make Imperials very expensive to deploy here. It's only males, though. So again, not affecting marriage aid. And then Bastion's just going to draw a couple more cards. not a little slow. The pace has slowed down a little bit. Hayes went kind of big with the Vader turn one or turn two rather to engage Han and Luke and set that up and now the you know Bastion has sort of he's just biding his time like he usually does, uh, playing his patient game. Doesn't need to make any big moves. His opponent obviously isn't doing any damage to him because these are both projections, so there's no force drains going on. Um, so you don't necessarily need to force any type of interaction against your opponent. Okay. Hayes uses 2 force to go get any card from his deck, and then plays tactical support, leading us to believe that's probably the card he went and got. He throws away resistance from hand, a card he probably will not need to use here. Certainly no inserts, and unlikely his opponent's going to be draining for more than 2 anywhere. Even with lightsabers, if he has the ability to cancel the lightsaber bonus with Decree, he's probably not losing. And his objective also subtracting 1. It's unlikely he'd be losing more than 2 force to any one particular force drain. So he'll pitch resistance. He'll take 3 troopers. We're going to get 3 pretty cheap guys in Navy Trooper Fenson, Trooper Davin Felth, who's one of my favorite troopers, that deploy 1, forfeit 3 base, which becomes a 5 with arrest order out. 2 power, 2 ability. Certainly in the Premiere through A New Hope, Premiere to Hoth format, certainly one of your best cost value characters for Darkside. A lot of your 2/2 guys for Darkside, they're deploy 2, forfeit 3, deploy 2, forfeit 4. Davin only costing 1. That's a nice little benefit there. All right. So Felth is going to the street. Still doesn't get the docking bay out. And we'll see Hayes just reload his hand here. Probably pick up 6 or 7 cards, getting himself close to back up to 12. Yep, Navy Trooper Fenson definitely has subtracts 3 from on the edge, off the edge, uh, and I believe we've seen Bastion playing on the edge in previous matchups. So subtracting 3 from their retrieval, certainly pretty big. Instead of retrieving 5 cards by tracking a 6 around, you'd retrieve 2, which barely makes it worth doing. Okay, Bastion's going to pitch Insight, and he's going to grab Launching the Assault now. So could be setting up a big home 1 package here, obviously, with Launching the Assault. Whether he's got the War Room for the cheap deploy, and then, Akbar and the other fish characters. And Hayes will stop at 12. He'll save 2 force. Bastion activates 13. There is the home 1 War Room. Now he did just shuffle his deck, so obviously all that tracking he had done previously is negated. So the order he put back those cards doesn't really have too much significance now. We don't know where anything is. And he will verify. He'll search his deck using the audience chamber to deploy Bo Shuda. It's not a once per game. It's just a may deploy. So just another alternative option to search your deck. But it is a deploy phase action. So much like Insurrection there. But if there's a possibility he could have another docking bay, I wouldn't imagine so. We've got home one, and maybe he's got a spaceport docking bay or something of his own, or another generic docking bay, or Tatooine docking bay 94 or something, to give himself another Tatooine battleground site to spread out to. And maybe he just doesn't want to put it in play just yet. So he's going to use the Boshuda to search instead. He plays launching the assault on Kurita, which is immediately canceled because Rendezvous Point is on the table. And Bastion laughs at himself for a deck building error there. So, oops. That's certainly going to slow things down a little bit. Yeah, I mean, if anything, you'd want to put launching the assault out before run. I mean, you could obviously play them both in the deck. You know, use launching to get your home one, then put Rendezvous Point out. Um, but ideally, you would find something other than a Rendezvous Point to use as a 2-0. You'd use Yoda's Hut or something. That's just a random floating 2-0. So now Bastion's going to have to dig out his home one the old-fashioned way. He spends a force to move R2 over to the war room. I guess potentially, if he does get home one out, to then, I mean, R2 can move to the bridge from either location, so not sure what the significance is of having him at the war room. Unless he's just thinking he just wants an extra character with forfeit there in case his opponent, like if he puts anybody here, like Akbar or something like that, and they get barriered. I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to spend an extra card. Hayes is going to play a second tactical support. A little bit of a risky move here. He's going to lose I've lost R2 to take up the 3 troopers into hand. He's going to get Barrack, Major Enfield. Will he take the 3rd trooper to put himself up to 13 and risk getting Grimtoshed and having his whole hand put back? Bastion went to 13. Bastion always draws over 12 cards. Often draws over 12 cards. It's not surprising at all to see Bastion with 19 to 22 cards in his hand, on turn 4 or 5 in the game. Hayes does get the 3rd trooper, so he took the 3 sergeants, Barrack, Enfield, and Bursk. If Ozzel wasn't on the table, Hayes could be doing a little inserting of his own. I mean, some of these guys are 2s and 3s. You'd have some decent Destiny numbers. There's also a system, Ralltiir, I think it is, that makes your troopers Destiny +2 or something like that, which was a version of ROPS. We would see the trooper version, and then they would control Ralltiir to boost the Destiny numbers of the troopers, and then insert and cause extra damage back that way. It was a fairly an alternate way to play this deck back then. I know there's the Monarch. Used Interrupt to pull some cards out of Bastion's hand. Hayes used 2 force to go get a card. Potentially, we would think that Monarch would have been the card he would have got. If he had it sooner, you would think he would have played it sooner. So he's going to pluck 5 cards out of Bastion's hand. He's in his deploy phase. He did not drain. Oh, he did drain for 1. Yep, he lost another copy of R2 first. Okay. So interesting. He used 2 force to pick up a card. He allowed Bastion to pick the card he wanted to throw away. I guess figuring make Bastion throw away a card he doesn't want, limiting, putting the cards more closely to his hand. So there's a better, I guess, a slightly higher probability that you, when you're only has 13 cards in hand, you're getting rid of something that he might want to put it back into his used pile. It's a slight probability increase there, but you're talking about, you know, card value and efficiency. Those could be the little things that make the difference. All right, now we got our first foray into the space venue. We've got Zuckist and Mist Hunter going to Karita. Navy Trooper Fenson's going to go there as a passenger. It's a reasonably safe place for him to be. Safer place for him to be. Chat was talking earlier about putting him at like the Death Star docking bay because again, it's harder for light side to interact there. But there are light side spies, and it would not surprise me in this format to see Tycho or Lieutenant Blount be played. So I don't know how long you kind of want to hang out at this docking bay. At some point in time, Hayes is going to get a spaceport docking bay out, and he's going to move this guy over and get a fourth Ralltiir location when he's got guys to cover them. And the right defensive interrupts, whether it's barriers or GICs or anything that lets anybody move as a react or deploy as a react, like Tempest Scout 6, that kind of stuff. Just under the half-hour mark on Hayes' timer now. He's got just under 28 minutes left. Bastion at about 31 and change. And Hayes figuring out what exactly he wants to do next here. You just want to draw a card or two. He's going to put one more trooper out. And there's Bursk. So the only site he can force drain at is the only site he can actually draw Destiny by himself at right now. We do see, obviously, Lightside's got a decent little pile of characters here. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not we get a Nabern to move these guys to Ralltiir. Could only happen during the move phase. Bastion's just double checking the movement restrictions. Now if he moves from the bridge up, or from the location up to the bridge of a ship, that's considered a regular move for the character. And Hayes agrees that yes, it is. Yeah, I was just talking earlier about the trooper Rallops insert deck. Some guys in the chat were just kind of talking back and forth about it, and they've been talking earlier about trampling and things like that, and then I mentioned something about the old, speeder bike or trooper version um, that Clint Hayes infamously threw in the garbage can after one of the Grand Slam events. Uh, he had played it. He did not like the results that he had with the deck, and at the end of the tournament, basically just said this deck sucks and threw the whole thing in the garbage can. Um, any of you who know Clint would know that that is not out of character for him at all. But all right, Leia with Blaster also comes down to the audience chamber now. So again, just sort of stockpiling some characters up. I think at this point in time we have to assume it's going to be a big neighbor moving all these guys over, and then whether they spread out to cover multiple locations, as opposed to paying the extra +2 deploy each from the Ralltiir objective. Bastion's just going to, hop everybody over. He's going to drain for 1 and 1 here. We're going to see a Ben Kenobi from hand and then an old Ben off the top of the reserve deck. And Hayes will go choose any card he wants from the remaining 11 cards in his reserve deck. Hayes has taken a little bit more time these last couple turns with some of his decisions. He's at about a 5-minute clock difference now between him and Bastion. Bastion sitting at about 30 minutes. Hayes at right just over 25. Obviously, from a damage standpoint, Hayes is the only one doing any damage right now. But obviously Bastion's gearing up for a big interaction. He saved 6 force. He's got 11 cards in hand. He activates 15. There's an Emperor Palpatine to the Death Star docking bay now. Okay. Protecting that cadet just a little bit longer, making him a little less vulnerable in case that was an action or an area that Bastion was going to look to exploit. It's going to be a little harder now. We're in battle phase now. Neighborn and Ellis are limited to owner's move phase and only exterior sites. So and the Emperor's going to docking bay transit himself to the Hoth docking bay for 5 force. So he's still getting the activation bump from mob points, but now he's giving himself another place to drain and do damage. Docking bay transit 2 here requires +4. And this site is free, so cost him nothing to move there. 5 to deploy the Emperor, docking bay transit for free. Free is free and unmodifiable, so the +4 here gets ignored. And Bastion's going to mess his hand back And basically, he's going to put cards exactly where he would need them to be to draw them for Destiny next turn. He's got 20 here. He's going to pick up 11 cards, leaving him with 9. And he can activate 15. So the top 6 are cards that he could potentially activate, and then the remaining 4 or 5 cards that are underneath that would be ones that he could draw for Destiny. And Hayes will draw a few cards of his own and go up to 14, and he will leave 3 force back. So we'll assume he's got at least 1, if not 2 barriers by now, plus very likely a reacting Tempest Scout 6, and realistically speaking, he would have taken a second copy of Gick as well if it was available during any of his reserve deck pulls, or just if he had drawn into it by now. So I have to see exactly what Bastion's got here that he can do here to interact. All right. Well, there's the Han. That'll flip the objective back again, so he can start doing a little bit of damage of his own. He can finally force drain again, as well as start doing 1 ping damage from the objective. If he moves anybody over here, he can start doing a second ping damage. And there is the home 1 going to Karita. We'll see if that draws out a barrier from Hayes. Hayes' timer is running, so we're waiting to see. He's got 4 force remaining. Yep, there is the barrier. And the home 1 will get barriered. And now we'll see what pilots he's got for it. There's Akbar, deploys -2. Adds 3 to power. Once per game, he can take another character. There's Calfal. Okay. Deploys for free. Both players draw 1 destiny and reduces their destiny to 0. We'll see if he has any of the other. Now we've got a lightsaber proficiency going on Obi-Wan. So now we are draining for 3 over there at that 1 stacked up site. That resistance might have come in handy. Does not appear that Bastion has any other fish. Whether it's a Major Hashin to cancel lateral damage, or First Officer Thinesby, who basically mirrors Zuckuss in game text. He's going to mess. He's going to mess his hand back. He's going to draw the remaining 6 cards from his reserve deck back into hand. So these cards are all going to go right on top. This will be what he is either losing to force drains next turn or drawing for battle destinies. And he's going to pick up the remaining 6 cards from his reserve deck. And with 1 force left, see if he has enough to deploy anything else. Or if he's just picking back up the cards he might have put back on a previous turn. Yep, there's Major Hashin. Hashin deploys -2 to a Star Cruiser, so basically free. Cancels lateral damage. and adds 1 to hyperspeed and armor, which occasionally comes into play. But if anything else, it's just another forfeit 5 character and adds 2 more power here. So now suddenly we're up to power 16 with all these pilots aboard. And have more than enough ability here, 7, 8, 9, 10. So even if he were to have to forfeit a character, if somehow he was outpowered or his immunity was cracked, this is immune to less than 10. But he is adding 3. So if he could get a second Battle Destiny and draw a total of 7, he could crack the immunity and force 2 characters to be lost, which would be, hopefully Calfal and Hashin would cover the 10. But now it's Bastion's turn to spread himself a little thin here. He's himself is down to a 5-card hand. Does not move up R2 for any extra forfeit either. Saves that 1 force. So whether it's a defensive interrupt or a barrier or something like that. Hayes is going to drain for 1 at the Spaceport Street, and he's going to use 2 force and go pick a card out of his reserve deck. He only had 4 that he saved, so he'll most likely take the lowest Destiny card if he's going to interact anywhere, just to get rid of the lowest Destiny. Now it comes down to, can he draw multiple Destinies somewhere? Now we got to drain a 1 over here with the Emperor as well. Hayes with 20 cards face down, plus 14 in hand for total life force of 34. Bastion also has 24 cards face down and 5 in hand for a total life force of 29 right now. And Bastion's going to lose that Tatooine Docking Bay 94. There is that Boskin Houndstooth to add that additional Battle Destiny. And again, he knows what those Destiny cards are. He just took the lowest one out. He's going to spend 3 force and deploy Sergeant Major Enfield here, who's really just some extra forfeit fodder. With Imperial Arrest Order out, he will forfeit for 5. Game Tech's not really doing a whole lot here. And he adds Sergeant Torrent as well. When in battle, adds 1 to your total battle destiny for each of your other Death Star troopers present. Okay, so now he's got Enfield here, who's also a Death Star trooper, so he's adding... And when in battle with another Death Star trooper, this guy adds a battle destiny. Okay, so these guys work together. So Enfield's adding a battle destiny, so he's drawing all 3 here. And he's adding 1 to the total from the other guy, plus 3 more to the total from Ralltiir. So we've got 3 battle destiny, and he's adding 4 to the total of it. So this realistically should get rid of a big chunk of the characters aboard that home 1. Interesting little combination there with guys. We don't often see their characters. And that's 14 plus 4 is going to put us up to 18. That only added 17. Why didn't that? Each of your other Death Star troopers present. I guess because they're not... Bastion draws an under attack for a 6, so Hayes is going to have to lose 2 characters. Bastion's going to have to lose all 3 of his characters. Doesn't take the whole thing down. Yeah, I guess I misread this guy here because he has to be because they're only present. They have presence because they're at the ship, but they're not present because they're inside something. So only 17. But still good enough. Clears all 3 pilots. He loses the 2 troopers himself. Still in a good spot here. Zuckus' game text is going to stop Home 1 from doing anything except running away. He's still getting 2 battle destiny. He's got extra forfeit if necessary. You know, Bastion can do some force draining here. And he can cause 3 force loss now. Hayes already lost the I've lost R2 earlier in the game, so he can't quite stop Home 1 from moving away. Unless he's got something like Gravity Shadow. Not unheard of, but might not necessarily be something that fits into this type of deck. Might just not be a card that makes the cut. There goes the shuttle, there goes the point man and the trooper assault. That's going to put the Imperial Barrier on top of the reserve deck, which he then loses next. Okay, Bastion does have a couple pilots left. We've got Wedge Antilles, Red Squadron Leader. That gets him back up to 7 ability. Does he have another Red Squadron or Rogue Squadron guy to put with him? Whether it's Tycho or Biggs or Red Leader. Red Leader will hit the table. There comes the second barrier from hand to stop that guy. Does Bastion have a third pilot in that 3-card remaining hand? He's got Lando. Okay. And R2 will move up now. So Wedge will be able to cancel 1 battle destiny. Hayes currently getting 2 there still. No Admiral aboard, so it's only immune to less than 8. And he's adding 3 to his total from Ral Ops, so he basically would need to draw 2 5s, because you assume the first 5 is going to get canceled by Wedge. In the meantime, Hayes will keep draining for 2 at these 2 locations. Dark Side will keep draining for 3. Light Side will keep draining for 3 and doing 1 ping damage. So Bastion doing more damage now, 4 to 2. And Hayes, actually they're kind of even in terms of cards on table. And life force counts are also pretty close. Bastion at 19, Hayes at 18. But Hayes has 2 more cards in his hand, so he's got a +1 life force differential right now. But he's getting out damaged 4 to 2, so he's going to need to be the one to do something to sort of change that dynamic a little bit, whether it's clearing out this system to get the extra drain going here, or finding anything he can do to limit this, whether it's a U3PO or something to slow a drain down for a turn or 2. Obviously, if he can find a way to clear Home 1, and then he can move a ship to Ralltiir and get Decree working, canceling all these force drain bonuses, then he kind of gets back into that lockdown scenario where the game is more in his favor, a lot more in his favor at that point. But with strong power, 1 destiny being canceled, It's definitely going to be a challenge for Hayes to muster up enough to get through all that. All right. So, Bastion got drained, lost Gunite and Ben Kenobi from hand. Hayes is going to use Karita's game text now. If you occupy once during each of your control phases, you can lose a force to retrieve one trooper into hand. So he will lose a card from somewhere and get one of his troopers back. Bastion commenting in the chat right now about the only good thing about Luke surviving and you drawing that docking bay for Battle Destiny would have been you fetching it next turn, but since you played tactical support, it seems to elude you. Excuse me. Hayes is going to lose Janice from hand, and he's going to get back Sergeant Torrent. Vader's personal shuttle to Karita now. We'll take a closer look at that in just a second. Permanent pilot provides ability of 2, moves for free, while Vader aboard. Opponent must have ability greater than 5 to draw Battle Destiny at same system. So slightly similar. He needs ability greater than 5 to draw. Zuckuss needs ability greater than 6, otherwise it resets to 0. But it's a cheap little ship. Add some extra forfeit, a little extra power. Sergeant Barrack shows up as a pilot there. If he has another biker scout, and he can draw and subtract that from his opponent's total. Yep, there's Irol. And Irol, is he the one who adds Destiny? Nope, that must be Drezelin. So he's getting 2 Battle Destiny, one of which will get canceled. Then he'll be able to draw and subtract from his opponent. Okay. Hayes is going to initiate battle, so he's got 15 power, 2 Battle Destiny, one of which will get canceled, and then he can use Sergeant Barrack to draw and subtract from his opponent's total. His opponent is only drawing 1 Battle Destiny, and hopefully, it's Hayes has some strong interrupts here, so he'll draw some 4s and 5s, and just sort of outpower here potentially. I mean, he's adding 3 to the total as well. So he may not crack the immunity, but he certainly can have a power bonus, force Bastion to have to lose some cards that way. Bastion does play how do we get into this mess at the start of the battle. And now we're going to see some interactions here with R2. Hayes' first Battle Destiny is a 4, which Bastion will let go through. There's a second 4. He'll draw another card off the top of his reserve deck, and then use Wedge to cancel the trample. And now he cycled himself all the way to the under attack, which is a 6. And now Barak will draw and subtract from that, and draws a 4 as well. So he'll subtract that. The battle was a tie. Bastion will not draw a card. So Bastion's going to lose the battle by 4, and he'll have to lose something, or peel 4 cards of damage. Meanwhile, Hayes has 2 attrition that he has to satisfy. It's kind of a rough spot here in terms of what you want to lose, because you don't want to break up the trooper combo of Iroll and Barak, but at the same time you don't want to lose Fenson and give your opponent the opportunity with a tracked 6 to on the edge and retrieve a bunch of cards. So he is going to opt to lose Sergeant Iroll here, and Bastion's going to have 4 battle damage to resolve. I mean, it's not a bad battle if you don't expect your opponent to be able to cycle himself all the way to attract 6. Hayes commenting he should have put down an extra character. That would have been good. Even if you put the cadet down, just to have, Nah, actually he's not really doing anything, because he only forfeits from sites and stuff like that. But yeah, if he had put down 1 extra character, just to give himself somebody other to forfeit, so he didn't have to lose any of this stuff. And Bastion is going to top deck 4 cards here. He loses Honor from hand, C-3PO from hand, Clash from hand, and What Are You Trying to Push on Us? So there go 4 cards from his hand. So at least in that aspect, the battle was successful. And now he will docking bay transit for free to the home 1 docking bay, these 2 cadets. Gonna have to assume, since we saw at least him draw it for Destiny earlier, there's probably a Trooper Assault that Hayes is sitting on here. 2 power suddenly becomes 6 power and immune to attrition. Not getting the Battle Destiny, but again with a smaller hand, not a lot that Bastion could presumably deploy and cause overflow in this type of situation. Oh, here comes mess number 2. So he'll put a couple more cards down. He'll pick up 4 off the top of his deck now. So he cycles through quite a few cards. And they're both sitting at 16 life force now, face down. Bastion activates 9. That should put him right back to that under attack. And Hayes is going to shuffle his deck, looking for a Force Lightning. Alright, so we got a big drain over here still. This is a drain of 3 plus 1 ping damage. Darkside is now doing 1, 2, 3 damage, so still slightly behind in that aspect. Hayes will have to lose 3. He throws away Lieutenant Arnett and then top decks Point Man and Colonel David John. And because Lando is here on the home 1, he's actually 2 damage from Prophet, because this doesn't require sites. This is for each battleground location they occupy. So Lando being here actually increases the damage by 1 from the objective. So there goes a Tempest Scout 1 and a barrier off the top. And now we get Chewie. Chewie adds Destiny with 3PO, but 3PO's over there, so that's not going to work. And now Bastion's going to be the one initiating the battles here. He's got the 6 again, so And there's no subtracting this time around. He's still canceling one destiny draw. He is going to react with the Tempest Scout 6 to give himself the extra forfeit, so he won't have to lose again, so he won't have to lose Fenson or any of the ships. There's that tracked 6. Hey, there's that docking bay. That's not so good. He draws a trample. Wedge will cancel that after R2 draws him a card first. He's looking at a total battle destiny of 3, loses the battle by 6, which is or battle by 4. He's got 6 attrition though, so it'll be the Tempest Scout and Barrack. Barrack and the shuttle. Yeah, Barrack and the Tempest Scout. Yep. Now, obviously, he can lose a force to get a trooper back. The Karita text. So if he has another Biker Scout in hand, or he can get one with the objective or something like that. And then retrieve a guy or take a guy into hand and kind of repair up that combo. Also knowing where his docking bay is now may be helpful to him to finally get that out, and then he can spread to a 4th site. Might be a little too late at this point. Certainly adding an extra 1 to his total would have helped a few turns sooner. When he cleared all the pilots, he would have cleared the whole ship, and that probably would have then let him set up Decree and really, win the game. Hazel activates 7. He'll leave himself with 4. We know one of them's the docking bay, one of them's the trample. He'll do 3 drains for 1 each. And Bastion's going to play a We're Doomed, since he was at 14 life force. Each time you must lose force, the loss is cut in half, round up. If C-3PO or R2 untable, round down. So Hayes drains for 1. Bastion doesn't actually have to lose anything, though. Gem still lets you drain. The force loss is just cut. So you drain for 1, and then your opponent, you shouldn't have to lose any force. But apparently it may be making Bastion lose something here. And I don't think any of these guys have any type of bonus game text or anything. Okay. So I guess it was asking Bastion if he wants to lose force, which he does not want to. Alright, yeah. And you can't lose anyway because it's cut in half. There was some type of weird interaction where Jemp paused, like it almost wanted to give Bastion an option to lose a card. I think, judging by the chat. Hayes was just testing to make sure it was rounding right. He was just, just making sure Jemp is working the way it's supposed to. Rolling Snakes in chat saying We're Doomed kicks in at less than 15. Sorfik is at 15. He's at 15 because the card, that's the We're Doomed he played and put back. So he was at 14 when he played it, so it did the subtraction and the rounding properly and saved him that 2 force. And then obviously it goes back itself afterwards. Hayes certainly getting pretty low on cards and life force. It would stand to reason that he could potentially, move Luke and somebody else, or just move Luke out to pick up an extra point of damage to kind of speed things up. At some point, Hayes can probably just suicide himself before Bastion can set up a big retrieval. If this guy should ever leave the table. Right now it's a pretty small retrieval. It would just be like he's losing a card from hand to get 2 cards back in his deck. And there's Torrent. He loses an Imperial Barrier from his used pile. And there's Enfield. So he's got the troopers back together. So now he's getting his 3 Battle Destiny. His opponent can cancel one of them. I guess the bigger question is when did Hayes get the docking bay out? Or is he just going to draw it for Destiny again? In which case then there's the docking bay. Okay, so Hayes took it into hand. I guess when he searched his reserve deck, that was the card he chose. Maybe the other ones are all pretty high Destiny. He wanted to keep them in there. There's Evax going down as an extra pilot. Okay, so he's adding just a tad more power. He's got a 3rd Battle Destiny now. He's got some more forfeit fodder. And then we'll see if he just moves these guys. Move these guys to the street, move the guys from the street to the docking bay. Since all that could have been done for free. Nope, Hayes doesn't move at all. That one I don't quite understand, but obviously there's a power and forfeit bonus going on here, but this is only at same and related sites, so meant to move. He's going to ask Bastion, okay to deny if you want. I guess he's asking Bastion if he can go back to his move phase to move some people around. We'll see if Bastion lets him do it or not. Hayes is trying to revert. And it only went back to the beginning of Bastion's activate phase. Looks like Bastion's going to be a nice guy and let him do it. Okay, so there you go. Oh, he's just going to move one guy over. Okay. Hayes has 8 minutes left on his clock. Bastion has about 18, so still a pretty big difference there. Life force counts. Hayes 11 down, 2 in hand, certainly falling behind. Bastion's got 15 down, 3 in hand. And he's causing 5 force loss this turn, so Hayes probably only getting 1 more turn. He's going to pitch some cards. There goes First Strike. There goes Tactical Support. There goes Fet and Slave 1. There goes Corporal Dreselin and Search and Destroy. So Hayes now with 6 down and 2 in hand. 8 cards total remaining, losing 5 a turn. At this pace, Bastion would finish him off 2 turns from now. So Hayes would still get a couple more drains in potentially, and could cause some additional force loss. Just to cut that differential down a little bit. Keep it in single digits, maybe a win by 8 or 9. As opposed to the 15 Bastion's sitting at right now. Yep, he's just going to move some people to try and speed this up a little bit. So Luke and Obi are going to move over, taking all the lightsabers with them. They'll leave the other guys behind at the interior site. So it's still going to be the same drain of 3, but now it's an extra 3 points damage in space, or an extra 3 damage from the objective. So now he's doing 6 damage. Hayes with just 8 cards left. So Hayes will still get this turn plus 1 more potentially. Hayes asking in the chat, he forgets if it's better to have less cards or more cards in your lost pile. And Passion's politely telling him that less is better. So we'll see if what exactly Hayes wants to do here. He's going to activate 1. He can do 4 points of damage. Is he thinking about suiciding himself? He's thinking about drawing up. Hayes is going to activate 1 more. And now Bastion's going to play a how do we get into this mess to put 4 cards down, or 3 cards down, and then pick up the remaining 4 from his reserve deck. So he's only got 1 Destiny left available. I don't know if that changes Hayes' mind about anything he's planning on doing. But with Hayes only having 2 Force active, it's not like he's going to deploy anywhere and really do much. Hayes will activate 1 more now. And Hayes talking about shoulda wouldas here. With he intentionally didn't put the docking bay out because he anticipated that that was how Bastion would move people around and move people over to try and invade Ralltiir. So he held on. So he opted not to get it for a while. And he's also talking about that he should have saved putting Palpatine down to go with the shuttle, I guess, that he had in hand as well. All right. Yep. So Bastion gets drained for one, and then plays the "We're doomed" again, which is what he messed himself back into. This is a narrow escape from hand, and Bastion's sitting right on 15. He's activated the rest of his force. He's going to throw away "There is no try" to pick up a trooper. Takes eye roll into hand. None of those force drains doing anything. And he's just draining wherever he can. Just, I guess, running out the clock, I think, before he draws up here. Yeah, he's just going to draw up to keep his loss pile down. So it looks like Bastion's going to pick up the win by 15 here. Okay. Obviously, a few unfortunate moments. That early Vader battle drawing the 0 that didn't kill Luke and get rid of the lightsaber. That certainly changed the dynamic of the game a little bit. Extra force loss the whole way around. And then the battle in space. And we'll just update the game with the game 1 result. And they're just reminiscing about a few actions that happened along the way. Looks like Bastion's talking about he had the "I have a very bad feeling" to stop any type of trooper beat squad. And I think we'll take a short break here. I'm just going to use the bathroom, and looks like they're going to take a 5-minute break themselves, and then we'll be back with game number 2. Players should be coming back here in just a minute, and then we'll get game number 2 fired up, which I believe should be Throne Room versus Brangus. Bastion being in the driver's seat with winning by 15 certainly gives him a good advantage going into game number 2. This is a matchup he was successful with in the last round against Justin. He actually ended up, I believe, winning that particular game using some of his manipulation tricks through his deck, being able to track cards around with Janus and things and set up, the only real drain threat that Justin had in his deck was to go take over, attack Bastion's docking bay and try and disrupt him there, and that enabled him to set up things like Trample and Trooper Sabek and all that kind of stuff. He trampled, I think, Luke and Obi in that game with, tracking high destiny cards around and things like that, and doing what Brangus does best. So maybe a shorter game 2 with Bastion already having won the first game by 15. Hayes is obviously going to have to try and put down some early pressure and see if he can't find a way to disrupt him. I don't know exactly which version Hayes is playing, if he has like the nudges and if he has the ability to go and cause damage elsewhere. If he has his own locations that he can train at. If he just has like docking bays and he's in 2-0s and he's kind of just planning on doing damage at his opponent's locations, it's going to be a little harder for him because he can't get the big overflow that he would need to cause a lot of battle damage. He's just going to have some, weapon swings potentially and things like that going on at the docking bay. Maybe some battle destiny adders, those kinds of stuff to cause extra attrition, but looks like Bastion had a phone call he had to take, so he's going to take a couple extra minutes here. To which Hayes replies, not a problem at all, take your time. So maybe, hopefully everything is okay, and we get game 2 right now. And Bastion's able to resolve his situation. Obviously, real life comes first. They can always reschedule game 2 later if they need to. Kind of weird to see the Gem lobby this empty. I mean, I guess it's great that everybody, hopefully, a lot of people are watching what's going on here, but I don't think, other than anytime there's been like a server restart, I've never seen it where there's just 0 tables. So that's always interesting. Yeah, Bastion's certainly favored to win the match from here, with the game 1 going as well as it did in his favor. Those tiny little things bouncing in his direction. All right, there we go. Now I feel better. Somebody put up a sealed game. But again, we appreciate you all tuning in and joining us this afternoon. Don't forget to stay tuned at 5 p.m. So about just over 4 hours from now, we'll have the finals of the MPC consolation bracket between Apollyon and MJ Turner. That will be commentated by reigning world champion Joe Olson and the MPC champion as well. And then, of course, signups taking place now for the GEMP, the Jawa Brawl tournament coming up, coming up here. Starts in just over a week, I think, right? It's mid-June. Do we have the Jawa Brawl? Nope, the league isn't up yet for it. I think that starts mid-June and runs all the way through July. You can find all the information about that here on the forums as well, while we have a second. So we've got the Sandcrawler Summer. This is the Jawa format event. Be sure and sign up for this. Looks like Kendall just updated the old registration lists. No, he did that yesterday. So still time to sign up for that. 12 games OCS format starts June 15th. I'm sure we'll have some type, but we've got some prizes. Let's see what we got. R2D2 virtual AI for all people who play 12 games. I'm going to guess this is 3 times t-shirts, not 3X in terms of the size, because I don't think many of us would fit into 3X shirts. The top 8 get the overall points, get the tourney winner foils. There's also some Reflections 4 packs. If you were one of the top 50 players to sign up and then you play all 12 of your games, you get the Reflections booster pack. And then there's also some gem booster packs as well for people to get some alternate image cards. Free tournament, costs nothing to play. It's Jawa format, the Jawa list. They haven't started yet. Format rules. Current Jawa X list. No map, no scum, no black sun, no hunt down. No watch your step, no throne room, no Diplo, no profit, and beggar is banned in all formats because it's currently broken and it crashes the server. So certainly some interesting open deck choices. Obviously, TIG is a good light side mains platform there. QMC, No Idea, Old Allies certainly come to mind as potential decks. Certainly a type of Careful Planning start or EBO or anything like that could also be pretty strong. Dark Side's got a number of options with this deal is getting worse version. The Shadow Collective is pretty strong. You could also see, ROPS or a Set Your Course deck. Maybe TTO is something in this format. I feel like I'm overlooking something. You could still do like a Court mains or something like that, even without scum. CCT mains could still be solid. You just can't play scum and villainy. So certainly some strong options still available for both sides. And then, of course, we also have U.S. Nationals coming up July 16th through the 18th in Denver, Colorado. All the event details are right here, including your booking link to the hotel to get your group rate at $125 per night. And then the registrations to sign up for the weekend pass to play in the Friday night tournament, usually a team event. The main event on Saturday, and if you don't make the top 8 cut, there's a consolation tournament on Sunday as well. Chance to win some cash prizes. Once we have a better idea on the number of registered players, we kind of look at the prize pool and post some of that information, figure out exactly what we can do. Usually it's around $500 or so to the winner, $500, $600 somewhere in that range to the winner, and then prizes scaling down from there. And Sunday event, usually you get $75, $100 for first place in that, maybe like $50 for second. So just an opportunity to pick up a little spending cash for some of the events to help cover your food costs or whatever for the travel. There's posts in here about people looking to share rooms. If you're looking to, bunk up with somebody, there's a separate conversation about who the best spooners are. That's up to you guys to figure out. Um, Usually, it's double bed situations, two to a room. When back in the 2000 era, we would fit four in a room pretty easily. A lot of us, just in terms of, we were smaller and a lot of us were broke. So getting as many people in a room as possible. I know at least on more than one occasion, we fit five, six, seven people in a standard hotel room. You know, somebody sleeping on the floor between the beds, somebody sleeping on the floor under the windows, somebody sleeping on the floor in front of like the TV. Um, and you're stepping over somebody. If you get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, you're trying not to step on anybody's face. But when the hotel room is $100 a night, and you're staying there for 3 nights, and you get seven people in there, it's like $40 for the weekend, which is a lot easier to scrape up when you're in high school, college, that kind of stuff. So Hayes is going to point out that he deliberately did not play the docking bay because he wanted that would open him up for guys coming in from the Tatooine docking bay or the Home 1 docking bay, and with Fallen Portal, it's hard for him to attack at that site. He shut off my damage completely at Ralltiir. Drawing the 0 was unfortunate, so was cracking all his guys on the Home 1. He should have deployed an extra guy just so he had the forfeit to keep the extra Battle Destiny intact. So, anywho, standard 8-game Swiss Open format. Cut the top 8 for Nationals. Denver, Colorado, July 16th to 18th. Pre-registered players, we've already got 5 who signed up paid, including the guy in the finals right now, Mr. Hayes Hunter, as well as the guy you'll see later today in the MPC Consolation Bracket Finals, Jason Raindow, along with Matt Lutz, Matt Wadden, and Ryan Serson. Still trying to potentially make that happen myself. It's a little bit of a long shot. Uh, we're looking to buy a newer house. We're looking to buy a different house than the one we have now and move, sometime in the near future. So hopefully these guys get game number 2 going, because I do have an open house to get to at 2:30 today to check out a potential new home that I may be living in the future. Looks like Hayes also made a comment about full scale alert, so he never took a move phase action that would have left him vulnerable. Yeah, that's also a benefit, I guess, of stacking all the guys up the way Bastion did. He didn't try and spread out, because if he had moved one guy over and then Hayes plays full scale alert, that shuts down all movement for the remainder of the turn, I think, except for smugglers. So, like, he could have moved Obi or Luke over or something like that, and then the only guy he would have been able to move after that behind him would have been, like, Han, which is probably the one guy you don't want to move. And then that one guy is then kind of stuck at Jabba's palace, and then comes 3 or 4 troopers and a trooper assault kind of scenario. So yeah, thanks. The real estate market is crazy right now. If any of you guys are obviously trying to buy houses, depending on where you live across the country, but you know houses go up on Zillow or Realtor.com, and within a day or two, there's already been a dozen offers put in on them, and they're all 10, 20, 30,000 over asking price, and getting into these huge bidding wars. And it's like the house, today's Saturday, the open house is scheduled for Sunday. The house was listed online for Friday, and it's already like, yeah, we've already got 7 offers on it. Like, you haven't even done the open house yet. So it's, you know, I'd prefer to wait 6 months to a year and just kind of, let the whole market kind of climb down a little bit. But, there's certainly a lot of good houses out there right now, and my wife doesn't want to miss out on them and then just sort of, all right, well, here's all the garbage that's left next year, and now it's like, well, I don't want any of these houses. I wanted all the ones that were available last year for sale. So I certainly see her point of view, and from that, because obviously you want to make sure you get the best house you possibly can. Um, it just stinks when you go look at some houses, you put offers in, and it's like, yeah, no, your offer's not good enough because these people went way above asking price, and more importantly, they waived all of the appraisal and home inspection contingencies, and they're like, we'll take the house as is, no matter what's wrong with it. It's like, no, thank you. So definitely a little crazy out there right now, but most of the world is kind of crazy right now. So still trying to piece it all back together, and U.S. Nationals is the first step to that for a lot of us here. So, and it's also a good opportunity for some of those Midwest players that don't really get to travel to events. Maybe, we see some of the guys from Colorado. Maybe they'll go to Minnesota if there's an event there, or maybe they'll go to Endor for the Grand Prix. If you're in California or Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, some of those states. Um, Anybody in like the Kansas area? I don't know if that's like an 8 or 9 hour drive. Kansas, Nebraska, maybe they could make a travel out. And then of course, you've got all the usual people who just fly all over the place no matter where there's a tournament. So, but definitely a city we haven't hosted a Star Wars event at in a number of years. There may have been like a West Nationals might have been there in like 2006, 2007, something about that. So certainly been a number of years since there's been an event there. And who knows? We're talking about retro formats. We're talking about old players. Maybe there's like a 5% chance Brian Hunter just comes strolling on in, right? He's a Colorado native. Maybe he's got some extra cards. He looks to, show up and just sort of sell some cards or something and just see who's playing what. Uh, Former world champion and all that. So looks like Bastion is back. He's ready to play. Hopefully Hayes didn't wander too far off. But yeah, all the information for both tournaments can be found right here on the PC forums. So be sure and review those. Make sure you sign up to play. Both the Jawa format and the online tournament, and then the live event, our first live event in 18 months, basically, since Endor Grand Prix of January 2020. While we're waiting for that, I just want to double check one thing. Did we announce all the details for Worlds yet? Because, I know where it's going to be, and we've hinted at it. Yep, there we go. Arlington, Virginia in October is our World Championships this year, which is just outside Washington, D.C. Maybe you guys have heard of Arlington National Cemetery, where all the military soldiers and stuff and President Kennedy and Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, all that stuff is at. That's Arlington, Virginia, is where that is, which is just over the Potomac River from Washington, D.C. And this is where our location for Worlds was supposed to be last year, but COVID restrictions were still in place. So we postponed it for a year, ran the tournament online instead, and now we will get to host it in person this year. All right, so Hayes did play the Throne Room with the Careful Planning. Bastion playing the Set Your Course, so he's got the Swamp, so we're doing the Nudge start here with the Swamp and the Farm being his second location. Which for some reason Hayes hasn't deployed yet. Is he debating not deploying the second site? Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think you can. It's one battleground or two diamond sites, so maybe he just, sneezed or something. All right, Bastion's going to start oppressive so he can play his grabbers for free, mob points, and he's going first strike. Big advantage of set your course, of course. Set your course, of course, of course. Right there for remainder of game. Revolution is canceled. You can also go get. You also don't take any battle damage at sites, but you can't force drain. But you don't take any battle damage. That's all canceled. You also go get cards with Death Star and Title, so you get your War Room, potentially a third site, but really not. But then you get extra docking bays into hand, and then you can exchange them with Brangus to get the top card of your lost pile back. So you play things like EPP Vader, you battle, first strike, retrieve, they lose, you kill some guys, Vader goes to the lost pile, Brangus then takes a docking bay from hand, exchanges it, and gets the Vader back, and you just kind of keep looping stuff like that around and causing damage. You hide Brangus at the Death Star War Room, where again he's harder to get to and interact with. And then you start doing some other manipulations, with things like Voyeur, with things like Trooper Sabak, because Brangus is a gambler, with things like Trample and Force Lightning and that kind of stuff. So Hayes, on the other hand, is playing the Throne Room version with the Yavin 4 Careful Planning starts. He uses the Swamp game text. During your deploy phase, you get a creature, so he deploys the Nudge for 1 force, or Nudge. He absorbs, temporarily canceling a dark side icon. So you use the Swamp, pull the Nudge, cancel this icon, making this a 1-0 location. Next turn, he'll move this one over, and he'll get another one out and move it over to cancel the icon at the farm. And then he'll play a bunch of 2-0 locations of his own. We see the Misasi Ruins showing up first. And he did get Gunite in his opening hand, which is a pretty big get. All opponents' characters of ability greater than 2 are deploy +2. Also can't use Maiamonith's game text, which we don't really see too much, but in this format she is a little more common. She's the one who lets you look at your opponent's hand and then put all male characters there, like in the lost pile. Or used pile. She does one, Ula does the other. I think Darkside's is better. And I think she puts them all in the lost pile, but I'd have to double check on that. But the deploy +2 is going to be big because there's a lot of Darkside. Most of the Darkside characters in this deck are ability greater than 2. You've got your Emperor, you've got your EVP Vaders, you've got your Janus and your Simalu to go with the Emperor, and then most importantly you've got Brangus, who's ability 4. So having to pay extra for those guys, definitely a big force denial strategy that Throne Room likes to do. They'll set up this, they'll do these locations. Typically they play a couple of revolutions, and then they'll revolution your locations as well to really deny you your force activation and then make your stuff more expensive with stuff like Gunite. I think we even saw Justin was playing restricted deployment in his deck, which makes all warriors deploy +1 as well. So, now Vader costs 9 in that scenario. And Bastion does get this Death Star to War Room. He also gets out Wakilimu, which is what he could have pulled from mob points. In previous versions, we've seen Bastion, you pull Wakilimu, you put Sinar Fleet System at it, and then he can deploy ties to the docking bay, retrieve a force, satisfy battle plan or something, or just block a force drain. You battle the tie, first strike out, not ideal obviously because you lose one. Then the tie goes back to your used pile. You take no battle damage because of your objective, and because of Sinar, once per turn when you forfeit a tie, it can go used. And then you just use Janus and take it back into hand and kind of could loop stuff like that around. Or you do it with the squadrons, the Emperor's Sword, Emperor's Shield, and then you retrieve extra, you retrieve 3 force when you deploy the squadron, that kind of stuff. So alright. Hayes is going to signal, he's going to get Insight and take that into hand. He goes and looks for a creature and does not find it. Sebastian's going to get a Verify. got a 2-0 location with the Chirpa's Hut. There's the insight. Doesn't let you pull Chirpa, just makes him deploy free there. So he's getting out a little bit more of his activation. And then he's going to draw a couple cards. This is certainly the type of deck that you would see Bastion play Monarch in, if not one. He may even play two in this deck. Because he really wants to keep his opponent from drawing a large hand and having a lot of the answers to his tricks. Conversely, this is also the kind of deck that Hayes would play Grimtosh in to keep his opponent from drawing a large hand and finding his activation and that kind of stuff. Add a commission from Hayes. That could be a card that could play some interest as well, because it randomly selects and places a card from opponent's lost pile out of play. So if it can certainly limit Brangus' ability to, swap for cards if you potentially put that guy out of play. Alright, so Bastion's going to pay 7 to get his Emperor out to the docking bay. He'll get +2 activation from mob points for that right now, plus the extra 1 from the icon, getting him up to 12. It's fairly likely we'll see Hayes come down and interact with him this turn. That'll at least limit that back to 11 or so. And there's the signer we were talking about. Retrieve 1 force each time you deploy a tie, and once per turn you can relocate a tie just lost from table to used pile. So anywhere you lose a tie once per turn, you can send it used. So you deploy the squadron, you retrieve 3. You deploy a regular tie, retrieve 1, that kind of stuff. Okay. So we're going to start with a Luke Jedi Knight to the farm. For a full 8 force. Now we talked earlier about put all sections on alert. It's a nice Destiny 6 card. That came out in special edition. That for a remainder of turn it cancels the game text of a rebel at a Death Star location. And I think it may also prevent them from using their ability to draw a Battle Destiny, if I'm remembering correctly. But I know it definitely cancels their game text. So things like EPP, OB, and whatnot, or just guys who have immunity to attrition, now they're no longer immune and they die. The lost function of it lets you swap lets you retrieve 2 cards with Death Star and Title into hand. So you do that. You exchange your docking bays. You get 2 docking bays in your lost pile. You play put all sections on alert. You retrieve the 2 docking bays into hand, and then you exchange 1 of the docking bays to get put all sections on alert back in your hand. And then you're basically just doing 1-for-1 exchanges for a while. Hayes drew a couple cards after playing Luke, tried a weapon levitation to see if he could find Luke's lightsaber or any lightsaber, and missed from the 8 force that he spent. Bastion will drop Janus with the Emperor, still cost him 3. Janus usually deploys for just 1. You can start manipulating some cards around. He'll use the Emperor to take Force Lightning into hand. Janus will then cycle a card back, presumably the Force Lightning, put that on the bottom. Oh. Or he's going to play the... Okay, so he cycled back a different card, then he's going to play the Force Lightning used, get the card out of his hand, put it back down here toward the bottom, and then next turn, he can take it back into hand with the Emperor again, and he can just keep cycling through cards and getting more useful stuff into his hand. we'll see exactly what Hayes is going to have to interact with. I mean, obviously, Bastion's going to draw big here. Go up to 18. Not surprising. Monarch is more common than Grimtosh. Because a masterful move to be able to pull it. There's always a card here, always thinking with your stomach, that could come into play. I don't know if it's a card we've seen Bastion play on any of his lists before. Oh, he is going to use Luke, and he's going to alter Sinar, or attempt to alter Sinar fleet systems. And he is successful, so that'll put that in the lost pile, and then he'll drain on top of it. Brangus only. Oh, I'm sorry, he's got oppressive out, so it goes used. Um, yeah, Brangus only lets you exchange for the top card of your lost pile. So if you can, change the order through something that makes them shuffle their lost pile, or put cards out of play with added commissions, or if you're strategic in the way that you cancel things or play interrupts or force them to play interrupts, and then you can kind of manipulate the order in which the cards end up in your opponent's lost pile a little bit. And that certainly limits how effective Brangus can be at retrieving stuff. But Bastion's going to play Projective Telepathy, which makes Hayes either have to pay 2 or lose or cancel the drain or a battle. So he pays 2, and then Bastion loses the projective to that force drain. So it just makes his opponent spend a couple extra force. Well, he certainly wanted to get the Sinar off the table, just to keep Bastion from being able to do any type of early retrieval and kind of drag this game out. Hayes is going to draw big here again. We're already, dark side turn 4 here, so we're, quite a few turns into this game, and so far we've seen very little activity. Hayes not finding some of his activation, but maybe not enough to do all the things he wants to do. Curious to see what kind of, extra damage he's looking to set up here. Is it like a Kessel Super Falcon kind of scenario? Or is he trying to set up an ability to try and clear the docking bay with multiple characters? Meanwhile, Bastion can just sort of play run out the clock here. They both have huge hands right now. Bastion with 18, Hayes with 20. Hayes did save 4. All right. So we're going to see an IG-88 with Riot Gun go to the farm. The downside to not canceling the icon with the nudge is that Darkside can then, of course, deploy there and try and interact with you. So Ig's going to go down first, and potentially be the only guy who goes down. Ig can't be battled. He can initiate battle. So you don't necessarily have a big harm in just putting him down by himself. And now Bastion will just draw some more. He spent some force. He deployed IG. And now he'll just draw 5 or 6 more cards, and now he's up over 20. And now you have to figure by now he's pretty much got all the answers to everything he needs, right? He'll use Janice, set up some decent destinies, capture some people, Draw some strong battle destiny and clear some location, clear the site or something. Alright. Hayes is going to play a used Grimtosh, which Bastion will grab. And that's going to dump Bastion from 21 cards all the way back to 8. And you just got to kind of hope you get the right, 13 in this case. And now Hayes will activate. Bastion will cycle a Force Lightning, take it out from reserve deck, use Janus, cycle a card back, and draw a new card. And Hayes will drain for 1 at the farm. Bastion's going to throw away a copy of The Circle is Now Complete, a card we don't often see in open format, but was very prevalent in the premiere to Death Star 2. Pretty much a way to just get rid of Obi. Present at a site, just use a force to initiate a duel between them. Add 2 if your guy's got a lightsaber, for each, whichever guy has a lightsaber to the total. But EPP Vader is 6 plus 2 equals 8. EPP Obi only being 7, Premier Obi with lightsaber only being 7. Ben Kenobi does add 2 to the total. If he's got his lightsaber, he gets to 9. If he doesn't have the lightsaber because he hasn't found it yet, or it gets weapon leved or something, then he's only a 7, and Obi gets put out of play. So after putting Bastion's hand back down to 8 cards, Hayes is now going to go with a Tantive 4 to the Death Star. This is no virtual Tantive 4, so it doesn't add an icon making this a battleground. But at the same time, we also don't see any type of coward or anything out as well, and potentially that could be a card that also got put back. He's got Wedge Antilles, Red Squadron Leader, and Tycho, who is a Rogue Squadron pilot, aboard, so he will cancel 1 Battle Destiny. It also gives him 7 ability, so if Zuckuss were to show up, he does have exactly 7 ability there to draw Battle Destiny, and then cancel his opponent's draw. And then he does the flip-flop here. Luke moves over to the swamp, the Nudge moves over behind to cancel the dark side icon and keep the activation down, and also allow light side now to drain over here. The swamp's game text also requires to initiate battle, yet you must use +3 force. So dark side's got to pay 4 to initiate a battle there, unless they have battle order out, and in that case it's still free. So a little harder to interact over there. And now, with this icon canceled, Bash couldn't deploy anything else over here. He could deploy here if he wanted to and then move Ig. He could also use Ig and kill the Nudge, I think. Maybe not. He can initiate battle. I don't know if... I don't... Typically, droids don't participate in creature attacks, because a lot of... creatures don't usually attack droids. I feel like that's what the Dragon Snake says. He's allowed to attack droids, because, how does a creature eat something metal, right? So yeah, so no creature attack there. The creature rules. That's always fun. And now that Bastion has grabbed the Grimtosh, he's just going to spend his turn and draw right back up to 20. That's what you do, right? Your opponent, you draw a big hand, you make your opponent play the Grimtosh, especially if you're playing a deck that you're not playing a lot of duplicate cards of, because then you don't have to worry about the Grimtosh lost being hit and taking away a big chunk of your hand. They play it used, they put your hand back, you grab it, so then they can't play it again, and then you just spend your next turn and just draw another monster pile of cards and get back a good portion of the stuff that you were looking for. And now Bastion's picked up his Monarch. Hayes was sitting at 14, so he's going to dump 6 cards from Hayes' hand back into his deck, bringing Hayes back down to 8. Hayes is going to activate 1 and then play the signal, so I guess he did not get the signal out of his hand, but maybe he got an effect that Hayes wanted. Hayes is going to take Honor of the Jedi, which is probably one of the strongest cards in this format. Certainly when you open up this format from beyond Premier to Death Star 2 to Premier to the Jabba's Palace OTST, which was the next expansion to come out, and you get No Escape, it changes the dynamic of a number of matchups, No Escape and Unita, but more so No Escape. Hayes drains for 3 at the Death Star. Bastion throws away 3,720 to 1. Simalu and Counter Assault. Counter Assault not doing much good when you're only drawing 1 Destiny against these high power ships and characters. And odds not being as good either when you have a character like Ig who's stuck on the table. So right now he's sitting at 9. He actually would lose right now, 10 to 9. Yeah. And then Bastion gets drained for 1 more at the swamp and loses There'll Be Hell to Pay off the top of his reserve deck. So there goes grabber number 2. Hayes is going to play the Honor of the Jedi. Bastion drew a big hand, so you would like to believe that he's found some type of space component. With only 12 force, so it'd be a little harder to get multiple ships out. Like Zuckuss and Bosk would cost 14, and he's only activating 12. But he could certainly do some type of, TIE Squadron or Dreadnought with a pilot character or 2. Not going to be the best because you need multiple destinies against Wedge here, but and with first strike out, your opponent's going to retrieve and cause you damage too, so it's a weird spot to be. Leia's going to go to the docking bay. We did not see Bastion play the Force Lightning yet this turn. If Hayes is did just verify his reserve deck, trying to check for a creature. So even if you're thinking about just shooting Janus to get him off the table and also to slow down any manipulation, okay, she's going to get barriered. And it's going to get sensed. And the sense is going to get grabbed. There's grabber number 2. And the third one's in the lost pile. He does draw Twas Ka, so the sense will be successful. The barrier will go used. And Hayes is surprised Bastion had a third grabber. In which Bastion seems to be like, of course I'd have 3 grabbers. Why wouldn't I have 3 grabbers? I'd play 4 if it wasn't triple dotted. All right. Bastion's going to dig out the Force Lightning now. He'll check his destinies and see what his odds are. He just needs a 4 again to get rid of Leia. But obviously you want to see what else might be coming down. Hayes still has 5 cards in hand. Okay, he's going to battle phase now. So he will battle with first strike. There's no retrieval. But Bastion will lose an additional card. Can't imagine he shoots the Emperor here. So it's got to be more about... There goes a Saber from reserve deck. Alright, so Hayes is going to play Careful Planning. He's going to draw a 5 for Destiny. That lets him activate up to 5 Force. So his starting interrupt has another used function. If a battle was just initiated, draw Destiny and activate up to that much. He's commenting on the Gemp Shuffle because I guess the Out of Commission was the card that was on top when he looked at his deck. And Gemp is known for somehow putting that card back on top a number of times. So he activates 5. Leia shoots at Janus and misses. She would have hit had he drawn the 5. But Sims they're only immune to less than 3. So you got to think his odds are pretty good of at least being able to draw a 3 here. He draws the 6, which is a Luke Jedi Knight, which will be good enough. Emperor's completely immune, so it's not like he's going anywhere. Hey, there's a Brangus. There's the superstar of the deck, right? And then Hazel reload his hand with all those extra cards that he activated from the Careful Planning. Also puts 2 5s together for him that may come in handy later as well. He's certainly in a position now where he could activate 2 that. He's activating 15. He's got 10 in reserve deck right now, plus the cards he drew. The 6 for Battle Destiny, and then the other Leia that he drew for Weapon Destiny. He can just activate 12, and then he's sitting on 5/5 right there. Which could be pretty strong. Brangus deck is definitely a slow starter for sure. Doesn't really do a lot of damage on its own. It's really just more of a death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of situation. And eventually it just sort of grinds its opponent out to the point where then it has a little bit of board control. Bastion will take his first docking bay. There's Janus number 2. Didn't I just kill this guy? Alright, there's a blast door controls. This is a good canceller for a number of light side evasion cards. Gets rid of Narrow Escape, Blast the Door Kid, Rebel Barrier. as well as into the garbage chute. And then we also get Coward making its appearance, which is going to stop that drain at the Death Star for a little bit. Opponents' force drains at non-battleground locations and their force retrieval are canceled unless they occupy 2 battlegrounds. Well, right now we've only got 1 battleground being occupied, so this drain is now canceled. He would have to get a second battleground, either by giving up the nudge and making this a battleground. If he has another location he can deploy, seems unlikely, but perhaps. Or he'd have to go take on this location. Bastion attempts to deploy Sinar fleet systems again, and Hayes plays the altar again, sending it right back to the used pile, so he will not be deploying any TIE ships and retrieving any of these cards he's just lost. But he will know where it is in his used pile here if he doesn't shuffle, and can just take it back into hand again next turn. So, a little bit of a good chess match going on so far right now. We're turn 6 and, haven't seen too much. Okay, so Bastion is going to attack the nudge here. So I guess he attacks, he's successful, the creature dies, and Bastion gets his icon back at the farm. Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, obviously, it's unlikely. It's likely to assume at this point in time Bastion has a Brangus in hand, but he hasn't really needed to exchange for anything yet. He's just sort of playing the patient waiting game. So no real need to put Brangus in play and let his opponent deploy, a spy or something like that, and kill Brangus and then make him have to find a second copy or whatever. Bastion is playing the long, very slow, very methodical game. Again, winning game 1 by 15. He certainly has an advantage there. And he can just keep doing all the little things that he needs to do to keep setting things up for future turns. If you can do multiple things in one turn with, dropping Brangus, exchanging for a key card, then playing a Sabak and drawing a perfect, 6-5, make his opponent lose some cards, and then, battle somewhere and retrieve some stuff with first strike, and kind of do, multiple things that he's been putting in motion for a number of turns. It's a very slow, very manipulative style deck, so it's not as flashy as, like a hunt down that's just going to just throw a couple of guys down and see what happens. Coward's immune to alter if he occupies any battleground, so if you can get rid of him here, you can alter the Coward. Now we have to see, does Hayes have another location? Occasionally we would see throne room decks play like the Cloud City lower corridor. It's the 1-2 location that guys with lightsabers are power +2 at. Um, it's an interior site. It's a mobile site. It's a good drain 2 location. But obviously there's no puller or anything for it. So just something you have to just sort of luck into. Um, it wasn't like a staple card, but it was certainly something that you weren't surprised to see um, your opponent play. Usually more in this type of format. Where you're playing this type of activation platform, you would just then kill your nudges and make these 2 battlegrounds. Um, so Hayes is going to draw a bunch of cards and draw fairly big. Makes a comment in the chat about he's like, I'm over. I have 13 now. In case that's what you were silently asking me. Certainly a reference to live Star Wars games where frequently players are asked how many cards are in your hand. How many cards now? Oh, you just drew a card. How many cards you got in your hand now? Especially when you're looking to play that Monarch or Grimtosh. Hayes draws all the way to 23. And he's not done yet. So Bastion activates a few and uses Janus, and then activates a bunch more. I'd like to think he just got the Sinar back. And there we see the Monarch used again. Did Hayes pick up a grabber finally? Hayes is going to try and sense it, which is grab. So he's got to pay 2 for the sense. And he draws the sense for Destiny, so we know he's got at least one more floating around. So because of oppressive enforcement, the Monarch just goes used again, but it does let him keep his giant hand for the rest of this turn. Although Monarch is not unique, so wouldn't necessarily surprise me to see Bastion possibly play a second one. Alright. There is that Sinar. No altar this time. And there is the squadron to the docking bay, and he will retrieve 3 for doing so. Hayes will now play an out of commission and put Simalu out of play. So that'll be one less character that Bastion will have to work with. Yoshi, thank you for renewing your subscription for month number 29. Getting pretty close to another milestone here. To get yourself an extra foil. A slip soon. I think my subscription's good for another week. Yep. Get another week to go before I have to renew mine. If you do have Amazon Prime, you do need to renew it monthly. If you're doing the paid subscription, I believe it automatically bills you the $5 every month to just rebuild or renew your subscription. But for Prime, for the free one, you have to manually do it each month. The tie at the docking bay. Bastion still has a decent number of ships available to him in his deck. I need to just retrieve a Saber 1. Curious to see if Hayes has like Kessel and a Super Falcon, Captain Han and Leia, that he can set up to get his second battleground and start doing some extra damage. Obviously, then you're opening yourself up for, Zuckuss and Bosk. But again, Bastion 18 cards down, and he'd have to leave a couple back. Those guys cost like 13 to deploy, plus 1 to battle would be 14. He'd have just enough to do it and draw a couple Destiny. Players actually watching in the game right now. I'm assuming that's most of the 26, 27 of you who are watching the live stream as well. Okay, Hayes will drain for 1. Bastion does throw away a Bosk and Houndstooth. And then he's going to play a masterful move to pick up the Monarch from his reserve deck. So he paid 1 and put a 6 back. And now he's going to take a Force Lightning. And then he'll play the Force Lightning on Janice. So now he's got card he spent 6/5 when he plays the Force Lightning here in a second. That's going to set up the perfect sabak that Brangus would do to cause the 2 force loss. And there is the Monarch. Oh, he's going to play the Monarch first. Okay. And he's going to dump a whole bunch of cards back out of Hayes' hand again. I would have expected to see Bastion play the Force Lightning first, like I said, to put the 6 and the 5 together, but he may not be ready. He might not have the sabak ready to do that just yet. And he might just want to obviously, and then play the Monarch and do all the things he just did for sure. But he's certainly struggling right now with Coward out to find a way to do damage. He's either got to get to a second ground location, if he possibly has Kessel or something like that to set up Space Drain, and get around Coward again. Otherwise, his only option is to keep throwing guys into the docking bay, but it's not necessarily going to get him too far. He's got another Yavin Foresight to put on table, so he gets another 2-0 against a non-set your course deck. It would not be unheard of to see a couple of Revolutions played. You set up kind of early, kind of force choke your opponent a little bit, do some little ping damages here for a little while, and then mid to late game, you just Revolution one of these sites and like move your guy over, and then suddenly you're draining for 3. That'll finish up Hayes' turn number 8. So we're moving right along through this game in terms of turn-wise, but we're just not seeing a lot of interaction, a lot of damage output from either player right now. And I wonder if this is going to be a kind of game that goes to time, if this is going to be the kind of thing that potentially one player has to make a very risky move, or if this is just going to be just another very slow, very methodical paced game. Before he deploys any more ties and retrieves any characters. Okay, so there's an altar. And he draws a Captain Han for Destiny, so it's hinting a little bit at the possibility of that Super Falcon. Bastion does take a Force Lightning into hand. From reserve deck. So that's going to just leave one card left in his reserve deck. So he's going to pick up that last card. So he's setting up a bunch of Destiny draws here. Just going to be a matter of what he's setting them up for and when. All right, so turn 8, we have our first Brangus deployment. We saw him drawn for Destiny earlier, a couple turns ago. But now he will finally hit the table at the Death Star War Room. And he's just going to draw a few cards again. Now, one of the other things that this particular Brangus deck has been known for in the past is overload. Could be a good reason why we haven't seen Luke get his lightsaber yet. All the cards Hayes has cycled through. Perhaps it keeps getting put back with the Monarchs, but more likely he's avoiding putting it back, putting it on Luke, so that Luke can't be a target for overload. And what we would see is Bastion use Janice to put back either a character like Ozzel, who's Destiny 0, or a Death Star docking bay, to put the 0 back into his deck, and then he could overload Luke, draw the 0, and blow him up, and lose both the lightsaber and the character. And then because you're using the docking bay, you can just easily take that back into hand to get the 0 back out of your deck, so you don't draw it for Destiny. So Hayes probably making another conscious decision not to deploy the lightsaber to avoid that scenario. Slows down his force damage, of course. But I mean, he's got 28 cards down and 12 in hand, so he's sitting on 40 cards. Whereas Bastion's, got 21 in hand and 13 down, so he's got 34 still. So we both players still have over half their life force remaining, and they're both down around 25 minutes on their clocks as we move into turn number 9 here. And now we're just wondering, how much longer are we going to go here? I'm going to step away for just 1 second. Like I mentioned, I have an open house to get to soon, so I just have to grab some stuff to get ready for that while these guys kind of figure out what their next move is going to be, and then I will catch everybody up on the action when I get right back. so let's see what we missed. Hayes used 5, deployed Obi-Wan to the swamp, moved Luke over, deployed Order to engage, gave Luke his lightsaber as well. Kind of forcing some interaction here. Barrier obviously will be cancelled, so he can't use that to set up any damage from Order to engage. He did get the lightsaber though, so the stuff we were talking about earlier with the overload, obviously not as big of a concern. And then he drew a number of cards, putting him back up over 12, so he can get monarched yet again. Bastion set up the perfect Sabak. Bastion 1, Obi with lightsaber and the signal went to the lost pile, whereas Masterful Move and Force Lightning went back used. Hayes then played out of commission to put Bosk and Houndstooth out of play. And now we are caught up, and now we are going to get a Blizzard 2 with an Admiral Ozzel piloting going to the farm with IG-88. So Ig here adds Destiny if he's alone or with another bounty hunter. So right now he's still only getting 1 battle Destiny here. But he does outpower him 12 to 8. He does get to retrieve 1. He retrieves the projective telepathy. There's the IG-88 tracking around that 7, that mournful roar. And Luke is going to be captured. So that second battleground just got taken away. And Ig will seize IG-88 as his captive, as his captor. Yeah, Ig's going to capture Luke. That's what I meant to say. So now Darkseid has a location where they can start doing some force training at, potentially. They've taken their best character, Luke, out of play. Leia and Han are still floating around, but obviously, you know, Ig's not the easiest guy to shoot. He's armor 5. And Obi's also already in play. And Ig's going to get inside the Blizzard Walker now. So that way he can't get hit and then, you know, somehow removed from battle. The other possibility here too then, of course, is if Bastion doesn't like the way the battle goes here, he could just lose the vehicle and take everybody with it and take Luke off the table along with the lightsaber. And Hayes continues to play out of commissions to keep putting more and more cards out of play. So we've got Simalu, Bosk and Houndstooth, and Twi'lek just went out of play of that one. Right. Leia with her gun is going to show up at the farm. There's the overload. This is at the 0. He's got set up to take her out of... Yep, there's the docking bay. So just all those little tricks that we talked about. You know, the deck doesn't do a whole lot early on. It kind of relies on winning the attrition battle, if you will. There's Oramarco. He got the trample too now. He'll just trample him. Oh, he's going to barrier him first. Hayes is going to play sense number 3. There's the 5. It's successful. Barrier will go used because of oppressive. And Hayes calls it in chat. Now here comes the trample. Yep, there it is. There's the mournful roar again. Or Marco's gone. So again, this deck is very good at limiting the ways in which your opponent can interact with you in some situations. There's battle plan. And Bastion's saying, well, now you're going to play Melos and draw something higher than 4. Hayes is going, well, it's a 5, so it's not going to be a lucky draw. The question is does he have another character to deploy? He's going to drop another. Not looking good for Hayes right now. And we'll go to move phase and so with battle plan out, he makes him have to pay for this drain of 2, but and it's a non-battleground with the nudge out, so then honor subtracts from it, so not really causing any damage there. So there's a little bit of a saving grace for Hayes, saving some damage, but he's still not doing any damage of his own. And now Bastion will just play the Sabak again. Because the way the cards go back too, when you're resolving them, the 6/5, the cards that were in your Sabak hand go used. Then the Sabak itself resolves and goes on top of it. So when you activate to the Sabak, draw it with Janus, and immediately play it. And then it's 6/5 win, cause 2 force loss, put the 3 cards back together, and it just keeps, happening over and over and over again until you're out of cards. And Bastion is going to get the overload back as well. So after he sets up what he wants to do with the Sabak, continue activating, get back down to the 0, overload Obi, take him off the table too, and then probably, do some other stuff. Retrieve some docking bays with put all sections. This is where the manipulation comes in. So it's not a deck that wins by a ton, because usually there's a lot of stuff it has to put on the table and kind of set up, and it takes a little while to do it. But once the engine gets up and running by somebody who really knows how to do it and how to manipulate it, it's very, very difficult for your opponent to interact with. Their only options are really to cause additional damage on their own locations, and that's very not easy to do with a throne room deck because they don't really have their own locations. So, perfect Sabak again, EPP Han and out of commission, hit the loss pile once more. Now he continues to activate all the way down to just 1 card left. Let's see if this is the overload with the 0 to get rid of Obi. Or if he wants to wait on that. But Bastion definitely in the driver's seat, even more so now. Really starting to pull ahead here. May only be a matter of time. Hayes is already down to 15 cards left down. He's got 13 in hand still, so he can still lose cards for another couple of turns. But, obviously the nudge here is going to go away. He does draw the other 5, but still not going to be enough to stay alive. So the nudge is defeated. It goes away. This becomes a battleground again, so he can go back to draining there. But now I'm sure Bastion will probably just pass here, leave the overload with the 0 sitting there. He can throw a card from hand away if he needs to here, and really just waiting for whatever else Hayes deploys next. And then he can just, if it's another EPP layer or whatever, overload her again. Or he'll just take care and get rid of OB in like the move phase or something. So Hayes activates, pays 3 to drain from 1 because of battle plan at the swamp. And then just scoops it. So Hayes is going to concede. Bastion's like, I'm not going to overload him before the end of the deploy phase. Hayes is like, it's not worth the struggle. So congratulations to both players on an amazing tournament and making it, going 9-1, 10-0 to make it through the opening rounds. I think there might have both been 10-0. And then making it through the other matchups all the way to the finale. Congrats to Bastion Winkelhaus on picking up the win and winning another major championship to add to his resume. And congrats to Hayes again on making it to the finals, to the second time around of this iteration of the event. So, and of course, thank you to all of you. Thank you to the 25, 30 people we had watching in chat this afternoon. Hope you guys enjoyed the coverage. Again, Game 2 not as interactive or exciting as Game 1. Kind of got a little stale there for a little bit, but appreciate you sticking with us and hanging around. And if you're looking for some more live Star Wars coverage, about 3 hours from now, we will have Apollyon versus Mike Turner, MJ Turner, Jason Raindow versus Mike Turner, with live streaming coverage by Joe Olson. That is the finals of the MPC Consolation Bracket tournament that started last month. And best of luck to both players. Should be some interactive games there. I don't think they're locked into deck lists. So I think they're allowed to change between rounds. So we'll see what options each player picked to go with for the finals. So you guys all have a great day and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we'll see you back real soon.